a little bit about myself, but just for those who I've met a few guys from the club before, but just a bit of background. I'm from Scotland. My journey started, probably go back about year 2000, 22 years ago now, when I started getting involved in the player and coach development side of the game. I was playing in League Two in Scotland at that time. I started doing my coaching badges. I worked with Glasgow Rangers. Initially, I was given the opportunity to go on and work with academy players, and then started doing work in the community with the club. It was a great apprenticeship for me at that club at that time, because I learned a lot about player development from guys from Holland. There was a lot of Dutch coaches there at the time, which really influenced my own beliefs on the game. From there, I started working with Partick Thistle. I moved on to Partick Thistle, initially working with the U19s and doing opposition analysis for the first team there. So there was a sort of long journey with Partick Thistle for a while, and then from there it just kind of progressed for me. I went to Livingston Football Club, another Scottish Premier League club. I worked with the Scottish FA as a development officer, working in a lot of kind of coach development, player development scenarios, doing a lot of stuff in regions in Scotland, really trying to focus on development of the game and grassroots level as well. I then worked with another club in Scotland called St Mirren. Worked there as an academy coach for 2 spells. Players that we had at the time that have done pretty well, guys like John McGinn, who's at Aston Villa now. He was one of the players that we had at that time in the system there. And there was plenty more. And then, I went back to Partick Thistle. I was there for 8.5 years. Joe was one of the guys that worked with us there as well. But about 1.5 years ago, I got the opportunity. I was asked to come to Florida, work with the Florida Elite Soccer Academy over here. The club is at a kind of junction at the minute where we now have a franchise for the USL Championship. We're building a new training complex with about 33 fields. There's a stadium, 20,000 seater stadium getting built. It's a really exciting project. There's 11,000 players in the current academy structure that we have. You guys know what it's like here. We've got teams in the USL League Two. I took the men's team in USL League Two last year. I'll be taking them again this year, and we have a full pathway for females and males to play from rec level all the way through. So it's been a good project to be involved in so far. So basically, a couple of things that I want to talk about tonight, see how you guys go with this as well. So I wanted to just touch on player development. Anthony was asking me about technical development and things like that, things that we're doing at our club. I'll touch on some of the things that we're trying to bring into Florida Elite that's maybe relevant for what you guys are doing, because as Joe knows, it's very different from where we come from to the environment that certainly I'm working in here now. So I'll touch on a little bit about the USA and the World Cup, and just a couple of statistics that are coming out on the back end of the World Cup, and I'll show you a couple of clips that we've used for our player and coach development stuff that we do on the back of the World Cup, trying to use that as a tool to help the coaches here learn. I'll touch on what my belief is on the game, my idea of the game, as we call it. Some people call it a game model now, but I just think it's an idea of the game, and I'll then go down the route of talking a little bit about what we do in possession of the ball, what we're trying to do here with the players technically, the things that we're trying to break it down into, and then have a wee discussion with you guys at the end. But I know it's obviously a Sunday night. I'll try to keep it as light as possible. So the first thing, obviously, touching on the World Cup. I don't know if you guys have been doing anything with it, but we thought that the World Cup would be a great way to engage our young players here in Florida. Obviously, with the US national team being involved in it, we were really using the World Cup as a way of engaging the players and the coaches in development and thinking about the game. Now, on the back of the World Cup, this is stuff that you maybe seen this, but this is some of the stats that are coming out at the back of the World Cup, and it's stuff that we've been using with our coaches here. 73% of the players who played in the World Cup in Qatar are very much based in Europe, UEFA member clubs in particular. You can see there the number of clubs that were classed as developing players at the World Cup. And Ajax, will touch a little bit on Ajax, but Ajax is the top club, they were saying, in terms of the World Cup. The players that played there, Ajax was the one that gave players the most game time before they turned 23 years old. And it's a big debate around the world. Joe will remember this in Scotland as well, about players before the age of 23. How do you get them maximum game time? How do you really develop them to become elite players? And that's something I'll touch on a little bit. These are the clubs at the World Cup. the top clubs that had trained players, if you want to call it trained players, players who had spent at least 3 years between the age of 15 and 21 playing at these clubs in their academies, and they were the ones that were represented most at this most recent World Cup. I've got a guy here who was involved with Dinamo Zagreb. I talked to him a lot. I think some of their stuff is fantastic what they do. I know coaches at Sporting Lisbon, their structure is very similar to what Ajax's structure is like. So there is quite a lot of semblance at a lot of the clubs that seem to be developing players in terms of what they do within their game models and within their structure. These clubs here, this is again World Cup stats coming back out of the World Cup. These are the clubs that seem to have produced most of the players that played at the World Cup. And I would say to you guys, and this is what I want to talk about tonight, for us all working here in the United States, there is no club on the United States on that list. There is, you had the US national team there, but there's not a lot of players that are playing at the highest level that are coming out of the US club system. And if you look at this map, again, before the age of 23, so we're talking about development football, where did these players, the players that played at the World Cup, develop? You can see from that sort of map there that most of them are coming out of Europe. A lot of kids will go into academies at a young age from Africa, South America. You know, they go to Portugal, they go to Spain for their development. But again, if you look at the United States there, for such a huge landmass and for a very sporting nation, you would maybe think that map should be a lot. I think that map should have a lot more blue dots on it. I think that the states should be doing a lot more in terms of developing players. That's why I'm working here. I'm sure that's why a lot of you guys enjoy working here as well. So here's some of the things I want to debate tonight or talk to you guys about and see how we can influence change at the grassroots level, recreational level, or elite levels at your club over in Texas, but also here in Florida. Why is the USA behind in player development? Now, you guys will all have your own opinions on it, but this is certainly the opinions that I've got, having worked in different environments. And I've been very fortunate to travel the world through this game and learn a lot from different cultures. There's obviously the other established sports in America. I don't know what you guys think, but I think it's difficult for the governing body structure. They obviously have, they're trying to implement one way of doing things, but across such a huge country like the United States, I think there's work that could be done on the structure of that. Many organisations, as you guys know, involved in sport here, in soccer here, you know, from all the different leagues, all the different providers of coach education, all the guys that are doing registrations. There's just so many organisations involved in the game here. As I say, the league structures at our club, I mean, we've got, off the top of my head, there's 5 leagues that I can think of that players at our club currently play in. It's very disjointed in terms of where the players play, what kind of style of plays you're seeing in different leagues and different cultures. The business of youth soccer, everyone has their opinions on that. That's something that certainly, you know, I've been going to a lot of the ECNL symposiums, the USL league meetings and stuff, and it is very much a business here. But I don't know how much of an emphasis on player development is in place across the country, and I do think there's room for improvement on that. The college system as well, I've been quite surprised by that. As I say, I took the USL League 2 men's team last year, and some of the guys came in really unfit, and they were telling me they only play for 3 months of the year, and I'm like, how can you develop to become a top player if you're only training or playing for 2 or 3 months? The pro club academies obviously are trying to get their house in order at certain levels. Professional club structures are developing. I would ask you guys what you think about the quality of coaching here, and how much do we really understand about player development methods here in the States as well. And there's obviously that winning culture. So these are all things that really stimulate debate before we get started. I don't know how much of that you agree with or disagree with, but there's a lot of things happening in the USA soccer market that I can see I think it's having an impact on player development. Now, I don't know, sometimes this can be a little bit sticky, but again, I don't know if this will work. This weekend, we've had a tournament here in Florida, and I've been taking a lot of clips of games. Now, this is a 7v7 game, and I'd like you guys just to watch it. Hopefully, it doesn't jump too much when it plays, but I know when I take out my camera and I'm going to take a short film of any team round about here getting the ball at the back, this is the type of stuff I see, and feel free to comment on this. But let me know, Joe, I can see your face, can you just give me a thumbs up if it's running okay, smoothly, or is it jumping? Yeah? Right, let's have a look at this and see what you think, guys. Right, it's a very short clip. I took this on Friday night at this tournament I've been at all weekend. Now, I don't know about you guys, you might have your thoughts on it, but I see a lot of this stuff here, and there's some of the questions that it raises for me and what I'm seeing, certainly in Florida, and what I've seen in a lot of the other environments is think about your own teams here as well. How comfortable are goalkeepers with the ball at their feet here? You know, that clip there, it was actually the coach that was giving them the instruction. The coach was shouting quite loudly. I don't know who the guy was, but he was shouting quite loudly, "Don't let the goalkeeper kick it," in his own team. So he was shouting that very loudly to everyone straight away. Then the little kid that took it, the coach was telling him, "Kick it long, kick it long." And I'm looking at the little guy, he's not defined physically. He can't really kick it that far. And as you saw, the little guy kicked the ground when he kicked it. None of the players were shown for the ball. So the thing that I would ask coaches here is, are you developing your players at a young grassroots level to have touches on the ball? Are they getting the opportunity to develop a bit of game understanding here? You know, they're all just standing still, expecting the ball to be kicked long. The player positioning, you know, what are we doing with our young kids in terms of player positioning? Do they understand basic principles of width, depth, length? You know, are they understanding anything in the game when you're just kicking the ball long through the middle? Any movement? Is there any kind of understanding of how to evade opponents and things like that here as well? And as I say, the coach instructions, what instructions are the coaches given from the side of the field that's either positive or detrimental to the player's development? And then the parents, you know, you maybe don't see it in this clip, but the little goalkeeper, as soon as the ball went in, he turned around to his dad, and his dad was absolutely screaming at him. And I was like, "What are you doing, man?" Like, he's screaming at the little kid because he wasn't able to save that kick in the top corner of the goal. So in this is just one instance of what I've seen a lot here. And I think that this clip is something that I see a lot here in Florida. And I think that for me, it's exciting because I think there's a lot of things that we can do to impact that. And I hope that you guys watching it as well, you will look at it and you'll say, you know, if you recognise that in your team, hopefully tonight there's some things that we can give you food for thought about maybe changing in that respect. So I could talk all night about things that we're doing, but I'll give you a little snapshot and example of things that we're trying to do at this club, and you can let me know if it's something that you're doing, whether you agree with it or disagree with it. So the first thing that we're trying to do here in Florida with our players, I work a lot with the ECNL players just now and different coaches. We're trying to work on game understanding. So, and again, this is my idea of the game, and I'm sure that you guys will be very similar. It's nothing new. For me, there's 3 moments in the game, and again, game models, everyone's got this. This is simple stuff, but during the game, the 3 moments that we're trying to educate our coaches on here is trying to get them to think clearly that when you have possession of the ball, you're looking to attack. That's very, very standard stuff. You have possession, you're trying to kind of progress forward. That's pretty simple. The next part, when we don't have possession, people call it transitions. For me, it's in contest. No one has control of the ball. So you're in contest, the old 50-50 that we used to call it back in the day. You're either going to win the ball or you're going to lose the ball. So what is your team doing in that key moment? And the last bit obviously is pretty straightforward. When you don't have possession of the ball, you defend. So our kind of game model that we're working on here in Florida just now, we're trying to implement at different levels, is really based on that simple thing. Saying to coaches that at the side of it, and I mean, me and Joe have been involved in this kind of stuff for years, but this is really basic for me. But I've been quite surprised that some coaches don't even think about that when they're at the side of the field. They don't think about the 3 basic parts of the game, and then starting to sort of build more context into their thought processes behind each part. So what I'll do, I'm just going to focus on the in possession part for the next 10 minutes or so and show you a little bit of what we're trying to do here, and then we'll get your thoughts on it. I could go on all night about the whole game model that we've got and things that we're building, but it would take forever, guys, to be honest. So for each moment of the game, what we have is we have a key set of principles which we are now trying to guide our coaches on. So in terms of in possession, when we're attacking, there's certain things that we're trying to do with the ball, and when we don't have possession, there's certain things that we try and do without the ball. So when we are in possession of the ball, this is what we're trying to get our coaches to understand. And Joe, you'll remember this, we did all this at Partick Thistle for many years and it worked, but we've kind of simplified it into 3 main parts. We tell our coaches and our players that the first phase in possession is we're trying to build up the attack from the back, whether it's playing 4-a-side, whether it's playing 7v7, 9v9, 11v11. We want to try and encourage our players to play from the back. Like that clip you saw there, we are still very much in a process of trying to educate the coaches to not tell the goalkeepers or someone else just to kick the ball along, but we're trying to maximise the touches on the ball for all the kids by getting them to play a little bit out from the back. If they can't play out from the back short, then we obviously go longer, but we do try and encourage our players to build from the back a little bit. The next phase, what we're trying to get across to them in the midfield area is to get our players to think about creating attacking moves, attacking patterns of play. When we have possession in the middle third, we're looking to think creatively, we're looking to try and overcome the opposition defensive structure. And these are the three key words that we're really using right now. We try to play through the opposition, we try to play around the opposition, or we try to play over. Again, that might be new for some of you, it might not be anything new for a lot of you, but that's certainly what our key principles when we have the ball in any area of the field. We're telling them, think about playing through, play around, or play over. And I'll touch on that in a minute with some clips. The last part is when we get into the final third, let's attack the goal and try and score. We try as much as possible, everything that we do our players understand how to score goals from the central area, but do we also know how to score goals coming in from the wide area? And our overall style of play is what we're trying. It's going to take time here because we're nowhere near where we want to be with it, but we want to play attractive, purposeful soccer in possession, looking to progress the play with technical players, with energy, and with an exciting attacking play. And we are nowhere near it. We are nowhere near it at the minute here in Florida, but we will get there eventually. Our last club in Partick, Thistle, Joe was involved in it as well. It took us maybe, I would say it took about 5-6 years, Joe, for us to get anywhere near where we wanted to get, but we eventually got there and we started seeing the kids developing and playing some great stuff at times. So this is the bits that really for us, we try and keep it really simple for our coaches. Again, this might be new for some of you, it might not be so new for others, but it is what we try and do. We try and encourage our players to think about playing through the opponents, play around them, and to play over them. Now, to put that into a bit more context, I'm just going to show you a clip from the World Cup here. Again, Joe, if I can get a wee thumbs up if this is running okay, mate, just because I can see you on the screen. Now, to put this into context, I'll just stop this. This is a clip of France playing, but I've been using this one for our coaches and players to get an understanding of what I mean by this building, creating and scoring. So the first phase here, you can see the back four in possession of the ball. So I would call that as the build-up phase. They're in comfortable possession. There's no too many players near them, but they're approaching the halfway line with comfortable possession of the ball. So my mind as a coach just now, we're building up if I'm watching it. Now at this stage, if I take that back, I'll just go back to it, it's jumped there a little bit. At this stage, when we get towards the halfway line, if you look at the opposition's positioning, I think this was Morocco, I think. If you look at the red team, they basically go narrow and they're closing up the space in the middle. So what we would tell our players to do at this stage is to try and play round them, because the opposition shape, as you can see there, they're pretty much closing up the field a little bit. I'll just pause it when it comes up. So now, if I pause that there, you can see the opposition shape's very, very narrow. They're closing the space up. So in our DNA, our style of play now, the instruction to our players is to play around them. You can see that the space is in the wide area, so we're trying to play around them. France do the same here, and then when they play the ball around them, as you see, Morocco move across, so they can't get forward. But now we're over the halfway line. In our kind of game model, when we get over the halfway line, we're now calling that stage the sort of create stage. When you get over the halfway line, can you think creatively? Can you attack towards the opposition box? Now you can see Morocco here have still got quite a compact shape, so they're still trying to play around, which I think is the right thing to do. But now, if you look at it, we're now in the opposition half. Can we have all our players in possession now, thinking about how can we create that chance to get through towards the goal? Now France here, you can see they're circulating the ball. They're still trying to play around them because they do have a narrow shape. Still trying to play around, but I'm going to pause it in just 1 second, which brings you on to my next principle, just round about here. Now, as I pause that there for you guys as coaches, I wonder if you see anything in that, but what I'm looking at is I can see an opportunity to play through the opposition. So there's an opportunity here now to play through, and I would challenge that all coaches, even if you're working with the youngest kids, you should be able to see this opportunity to play through. There's 6 defenders either side of the man on the ball. There's a clear corridor there, and there's an opportunity for a pass through to the striker, which would allow you to then progress in towards the final third. And again, in our game model, the same as the way the French guys do it, we're creating, this is a creative pass through that goes and releases someone into the final third to try and score. And as you see what happens here, there's the passing line. there's the through ball, he's through, he's in, you're now in attacking the last line in the box, and you're going to go and score the goal. So that clip there is a very quick summary of what my game sort of idea of the game is, to build, create and score. And it gives you two examples of playing round and playing through, which again forms a core of a lot of what we're trying to do here in Florida just now. Right, the next clip I'm going to show you, or the next part, is talking about developing an identity. So what do we do with the ball and without the ball? Now, I don't know, I know Anthony was doing a lot of stuff for you guys before about this, but the key thing just now, again, our playing identity here in Florida, the playing through aspect. I'm going to show you another clip, just if you can see it, and you'll remember this goal. This is the best pass I think I've ever seen in my life, by the way. I don't know about you guys, but this is Argentina against Holland at the World Cup. Again, tactical cam. We use these tactical cam footage for a lot of our coach development here, because it just gives you a great angle of what's happening. Lionel Messi gets on the ball, okay, and I'm sure you've seen this. He gets on the ball, he cuts inside. Now, if I just pause this here, to most normal people, there's not much. You're not seeing much here, I don't think. You're just seeing a guy one-on-one dribbling. Now here, at this point, the genius of Messi, we're looking at how can you play through 6 players when we've got 3 players in a line in midfield, and we've got 3 defenders in a line, and you only have two players. But look at that pass from Messi. He sees this opportunity to play through those 2 defenders, and in doing so, he takes out 6 Netherlands players. But what a pass. Look at this pass, bang, right through them, and they go and score. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. But again, the simple principles in your mind as a coach and a player, if the opposition are opening up, you play through them like that. If they're closing up, you play around them. And then the third one, which I'll touch on in a minute, is obviously playing over them. Now, people will say, oh yeah, the guys here were saying it as well. They were talking about, when I first came here, I would show them a lot of clips of top level players, and they would say, yeah, but that's Messi, that's World Cup players, that's this and that. But here's an example from our USL team in the summer, just to show you how you can implement it here in the States as well. This is an example where we had worked, this is Tampa Bay United we were playing, and I had watched them and I noticed that they were playing really narrow. So we worked on a game plan of playing around them. When we were in the opposition half, we worked on trying to play around them as much as possible. And you'll see here, we win possession. The boys understand here that they've won possession of the ball. TBU, as we expected, are very narrow. So our players, if you look at our left midfielder and our left back, we had worked on trying to get them wide so that we could play around. That was our part in the play. And as you see here, we won this game 3-0. And the boys done a great job. They got forward, they got down the sides, and then we'd worked on, when we get that area, get crosses and finishes. And we scored a lot of goals in the USL 2 League this year from that type of play. So playing round is another part of what we're doing. The next one I'm going to show you, this is our ECNL boys 2006s. When I first got here, and I'm not taking the credit for it, but I'm telling you, when I first got here, they just kicked it long. They had a striker that would chase it down and try and score to win games. There was no way of playing at all. So we worked extensively on their technical skills, which is what I'm going to talk about in a minute. We worked extensively on their technical skills to try and get these guys understanding how to play the game. And as you see here, they start to play a little bit. They try and get forward, but the other team close them up. They bring the ball back. They circulate it back down. But as well as being comfortable in possession, I have been saying to the boys to recognise when you can also play over. So that third part of our kind of game model, playing around, playing through and playing over. At this instance here, a big centre half here, we were encouraging them to play over because the opposition line was quite high, we felt, and they were able to just clip the ball over. And as you see here, ball over the top, good diagonal ball, and a little guy here gets it, faces up the opponent, and he goes and scores a good goal. But again, these kids, we've worked with them now for a year on their technical development, and we're seeing significant improvement. When we first got here, people were telling me that these boys were too old. You know, you can't influence their development and stuff like that. And honestly, guys, I think you can influence players all the time. So next part on this is about developing a style of player, trying to kind of get these principles into a game. For me, and I say this to the coaches here in the States that I'm working with, I don't think that you can talk about playing through teams, round teams, over teams, or developing a style of play if you have not first developed players that are technically competent. And here, Certainly, I don't know what it's like in Texas, but the technical levels of the players here is really poor, to be honest with you, compared to what I've been used to working with before. So in terms of technical development, what are we trying to do here in Texas? Here in Florida, and hopefully you are trying to do something similar in Texas. We try and break down the technical development of our players into 4 parts. This is something that we've looked at. The first part is receiving skills. So I don't know what your guys are like over there, but first touch is certainly something that needs development here. A lot of the times the players can't control the ball, they can't pass the ball. But these are the sort of first points of contact that we work on our technical sessions. So we look at the first touch, we look at players' ability to change direction with the ball. Can they play a first time pass? Can they dribble with the ball as soon as they receive it? Can they, if they're a wide player, can they cross first time like you saw one of our boys doing earlier on there? Can they play cutbacks? Can they have one-touch finishes in the box? And also with the older players, I know obviously they can't do it with the younger kids, but how is their heading ability at the older age groups? Obviously you're not allowed to have the younger kids doing that. The next part that we look at in terms of our technical skills is retaining skills. So once you've received the ball, have you got the ability to retain it? And what we do again is we look at being able to control the ball on the ground, controlling the ball in the air. Again, being able to change the direction of the ball when you're running with it, manipulating the ball. Can you dribble forward? Can you beat opponents? Can you shield the ball? Can you twist and turn? These are the types of things that we would class as retaining skills when we're doing our technical development. Third part is releasing. So the release skills is obviously pass, short passes, long passes, driven passes, cross, cut, back shots, anything where the ball is leaving you and you're passing it or connecting it onto an opponent, or you're trying to get a shot on goal. And then the last part that we look at technically, sometimes people, we were having that big debate here about it, some people maybe don't class these things as technique, but I certainly do, is recovery skills, defensive skills, you know, your technique running to try and close players down, your footwork when you don't have possession of the ball, again, 1v1 duels, 1v1 ball winning, interceptions, block. So we kind of class that as our defensive technique skills. So those 4 key areas there are what we're trying to break it down into now, and this forms part of our technical curriculum that we're going to be putting in place. Again, some people might just work on control, passing, dribbling, shooting, but for me, when you're really working on your individuals, breaking it down to how you receive the ball, how you retain the ball, how you release the ball, and then how you recover the ball. If you cover all those stations with your young players all the way through, you start to put those building blocks of a player development in place. And that's certainly something that we're trying to do. Now, in terms of practices, what we're doing over here, again, just touching on, Anthony kind of had asked us to maybe touch on how we go about it. This is me working with some of our young lads, and it's just a quick example. We very much believe in possession-based activities. We very much believe that the game is the teacher, and trying to get the players to develop through a lot of possession games. As an example, if you're trying to teach players how to play through opposition, if you have no defenders in a drill, or you have one defender in a drill, how can you teach them to play through 2 defenders? So a 4v2 box possession, for example, is a great intro activity where 2 defenders are in place and you have that option to pass the ball between them, you know, so you're teaching them to play through. If 2 defenders close up, can you play around them? But this is just one example of a drill. There's many that we've done. Just turn this down a little bit. But basically, we put together a kind of library now for our coaches here. We've filmed all the sessions, and we've given them we're giving them a library of practices they can use, but we annotate it as well so that they can see as examples here. There's where the players are playing through the opposition. So there's the first part of what we're trying to do. The second part, obviously with players on the side, is trying to play around. There's me stretching my hamstring, overstretching it there with a bad touch. But again, just trying to encourage the players to be comfortable on the ball as much as possible. Trying to get them to think about, can you play through between them? Can you play around them? Can you play over them? These are just, it's a very simple box exercise, but this just gives you an idea of the type of training practices that we focus on. We try and avoid unopposed practices, to be honest with you. Just now we're trying to get the players comfortable under pressure against opposition as much as possible. That's just something that we want to do here. But it's that old debate, is it opposed practices or unopposed practices? Again, here's another example where we were saying to Trevin, the boy in the ball here, if it's closed up, clip it over the top of them. So you can see in these possession boxes that all of these scenarios, 1v1 scenarios, 2v2s, 3v2s, overloads, technical skills, control, pass, ball retention, in possession boxes, you'll get that all day. And I know that, I'm sure, like Joe, you know that as well. You've been doing it for years as well, the importance of teaching players good habits in possession. So the next little part just on this then is about coaching, guys. So what are we doing here to try and develop our coaches? Well, we are trying to put a framework in place for player development, but we're also trying to put a framework in place to help our coaches develop. And I'll show you some of the things that we are doing currently. This might be new for you. Basically, this is something that I developed with a guy from Glasgow Rangers back home, one of the analysts there, who's a friend of mine. What we're trying to do here is that if you think about your training sessions, the way that we are asking our coaches here in Florida to structure their practices is to have 4 parts to it. Now, the middle bit, if you look at the sort of performance monitoring training activity guidelines on one side of the screen here, basically what we're trying to do is we have part 1 as a warm-up, standard stuff, part 2 technical work, progressed it onto a game-related practice, taking it into a game situation, and then having some kind of recovery at the end of it. Again, pretty standard sort of structure for a training session, but that's what we're asking our coaches to do. Now, within that, what I'm telling them, because part of my job is coach development here, we're telling a lot of our coaches now that we want the ball to be rolling as much as possible through those 90 minutes. Okay, if it's a 90-minute session or it's an hour session, we want to have a high percentage of time where the ball's rolling and it's not coach talking. So what I'm doing just now is this sheet that you see here, this, as I say, this is something that I've just put together. But I'll go out and I'll watch coaches. The sheet on your right-hand side is an actual session that I watched, and it tells you what the coach was doing. So you can see the coach started doing dribbling at the start of the session. He moved it on into 1v1s. He then moved it on doing sprints and push-ups. It then went 4v4 with a target game, and then he progressed to an 11v11 game. Now, within that, you can see the sort of the stats, if you want to call it that. This was what I recorded from it. There was 53 minutes of a 90-minute session where the ball was moving. The coach was talking a lot in the session. There was 21 times in the session where he stopped it to talk, and that took up 24 minutes of the total time. The instructions, he had 9 explanations of activities. The longest time he was in stopping the exercise was for 2.5 minutes, and the shortest was 1 minute. Now, for 2.5 minutes, he was just talking, and the kids were all just standing about listening. In total, we had 12 practice stoppages, as I say. It's actually in the sessions, like in the middle of it, he was actually stopping it too much. And so on reflection, when we said it to him after it, I said, look, your session ran for 85 minutes. 62% of that session was the ball rolling, and the rest of the time was stoppages for water breaks and for coach talking. So we're saying to the guys here, can you try and get that time up to over 65% of your session where the ball's rolling, so that the ball's moving more, and you as a coach are not stopping it and talking. Now, I'm bad for it as well. I'm sure you guys are as well if you reflect on your own practice. If you're working for 90 minutes, how much time are you stopping your practices and your kids are just standing doing nothing? Are they getting touches on the ball? And I would challenge you guys, if you want to use, as I say, I've made this up just for our coaches here, but analyse yourself as a coach and the ones that you're working with. Are you maximising the touches and the time on the ball for the kids? Because that's something that certainly I see here, a lot of coaches that stop it a lot and kids that are not getting enough touches on the ball. So that's that. So just, again, it was a whistle-stop tour there. I don't want to talk too much, but I think that's about 40 minutes. So summary of what we're trying to do here in Florida and things that have worked certainly for me as a coach in the past. I focus on technical development. I don't know what you guys are doing, but I certainly think that there has to be a real focus on technique and developing technique. And again, those receiving skills, the retention skills, the ability to release the ball and recover the ball. If you're focusing on those things for younger kids and you're helping them develop through their pathways, I certainly think that you'll develop better quality players. Understanding the game, teaching the game, understanding. I would challenge you guys as a coach to say, do you understand the game? Are you using the World Cup? Are you watching games all the time to try and educate yourself first? Because if you're not educating yourself on the modern game, how can you teach your players what's happening in the modern game? It's something that I keep doing all the time. As you see from those clips, we took all the World Cup as a great example where all of our coaches get access to the tactical cam footage. They were all asked to submit clips that they saw, get them thinking, and then I hear our coaches talking about the terminology now on the fields about, you know, getting width in the game, dropping in the game, and I'm seeing a bit of progression with that there. Maximising the ball rolling time in your training sessions. As I say, that's something that you haven't watched a lot now here in the States. I do think that there's a lot of coaches that talk too much, and that's not a criticism, it's just a style that I notice where it's a lot of stoppages and the coach talking and the kids standing about doing not very much. Having structure to your sessions, I've been very surprised here again in Florida that a lot of the guys don't have a session plan. They don't work from a structure. They just put different exercises together. They don't really have a thought process on themes. I think that's important as well, having those structures to your sessions, and that those sessions link to your identity and your DNA as a club. And then utilising game clips as well is another bit that we're trying to do here. As I say, I don't know if you guys are doing it, but I think it's a great way for teaching kids. A lot of the kids here in Florida don't watch the game. I don't know if that's the same in Texas, but a lot of the kids that we're working with don't watch a lot of soccer. So we're trying to kind of utilise these clips to give them to the players so that they understand the game a little bit more. And as I say, as a coach, always trying to be a student of the game. So guys, it's a whistle-stop tour of what we're doing here. Anthony had asked me to just give you a snapshot of what we're trying to do here in Florida. That's some of the things. I could be here all day with what we're hoping to do, but we are seeing some progress with our players technically. We are seeing some progress with their game understanding, and we are seeing some coaches certainly making strides forward in their own development and keen to keep learning. So I hope that gives you a very little snapshot of what we're doing. All right, okay, Anthony. So that's just a whistle-stop tour of what we're doing, mate. So I don't know if there's any discussion or any question that you would have on that.
Well, Scott, man, you always give a fantastic outlay of what you're doing, and for those guys that are on the call, and apologies, I'm driving, so if it sounds a bit loud, I apologise, but you know, always good information out there, and I think some of the key things to take away at the very end there was very important as well for the coaches, and that's session planning and make sure we got a plan in place. You're right, Scott. I think a lot of people show up with a lot of just different exercises put together and change from day to day. But I know Joe's doing a fantastic job on the boys' side, and he's getting that straightened out with all the coaches on that side as well to have a plan in place and keep everything structured. Guys, are there any questions you have for Scott? This is a wealth of information, so fire away with some questions before he has to wrap up.
All right, Scott, I'll go first. Seeing as,
Yep.
listen, that was great. A lot of the things that you've done there are things that that I seen you doing at Partick Thistle, and certainly a lot of things that I had learned and I'm putting into practice now. The things, a lot of the things that I speak to the coaches that I'm working with is the same things that you said about playing around, playing through, playing over. I think it keeps it very simplistic. I think that's one of the challenges, is a lot of the coaches is they can make it very complex, and I was guilty of it when I was younger as a coach as well. Like, you've got so many ideas floating around your head, but you have to remember you're trying to make it very simplistic for the kids. Getting the building blocks right. So talking about technical players, I completely agree. I feel like when I came here, I've had to do a lot of adapting as a coach because I'm working with different levels of players that I've always been used to, and I've been very fortunate. But I also believe there's an opportunity to make an impact here, because the kids are great, the families are great, but I feel like we're missing the building blocks. And sometimes in my experience, I've seen U6, U7, U8 teams trying to do shape and just crazy things, and I'm like, they can't even tie their laces yet. Like, we need to give them the ball. We have to give them the ball, and at least if you're going to do any sort of shape, please at least put it in a pattern where you're working on the technical aspect of playing out from the back, like how to take the touch on the proper foot and getting more touches of the ball. I've seen lots of coaches talking, like you said, just talk, and again, I can get guilty of that, but like, talking too much, and the kids are getting a 90-minute session, but the ball's only active for 45 minutes of it. Like, we only get 3 hours with some kids. So, and a lot of the kids don't come from the same background that we did when we were younger, where they played on the street for hours upon end to get that technical ability. So I think a lot of stuff that you've shared tonight is really, really valuable for the coaches. It's great to see the things that you're doing. I'm kind of trying to reinforce some of that. But I think for the guys that are on tonight, it's been brilliant. It's been really valuable. I think the simplicity of it, of what you're showing, it's been brilliant, and it's good to hear a Scottish accent again.
I know. Just on that, Joe, this sheet here that I've got back on the screen, I mean, I don't know if this is beneficial for you guys to see. This is just something that I've made up with a guy from Glasgow Rangers, as I said, back home. I was home in the summer. I went to Queen's Park Rangers. I got the chance to speak to Michael Beale, who's now the Glasgow Rangers manager, the first team staff there. And again, talking about these principles, he's worked in youth development as well for a number of years. And I was debating after talking to different guys in the summer. I was saying to myself that football's a really simple game. You know, you're in possession, you're out of possession, or you're fighting for the ball. But you're right, Joe. It's about, you know, making sure that if you're working with the youngest kids, that you keep it really simple. You know, you keep it really technical for them so that they can develop. And then you add the complexity and the complex layers as you go through the age groups. But on this sheet, guys, for you, if you want to use this, I would say to yourselves, challenge yourself as a coach. And as Joe said there, you know, like, I know I'm guilty of getting in and talking too much at times in sessions because there's so much that I want to learn, want the players to learn, sorry. But I've tried to really, we film our sessions. So I've got the Vail cameras here and I try and film my own sessions and I watch them back to assess myself. And there's times where I've looked at it and I'm going, I'm talking too much here, I'm stopping it too much. I need to try and get the ball rolling more so that the kids can get maximum touches on the ball. So I think for everyone, you know, if you want to use that as a guide, the coach performance side of it, try to have the ball rolling as much as possible. Try to minimise your stoppages when the kids are active and running about. Your instructions, make them really clear at the start of your practice, and that way you won't have to stop it too much. I see a lot of guys doing that. They don't give the demonstrations right, and then within 2 minutes they're stopping it and try to recreate it for the kids because they didn't explain it right at the start. So they're stopping the session because they're trying to correct their own mistakes as a coach because they haven't showed it or given the right instructions, and try and limit those interventions to at least 1 minute. Because if you're talking for more than 1 minute in an exercise, you're going to lose your kids' attention as well. So I mean, I know the coaches that I've done this with here, they've really bought into this sheet that I've given them, and I give the one on the right is what I give them as an evaluation after the sessions. And they get the guys that I've worked with doing this, they've asked me to do more and more of it because they're really buying into it and they're thinking that it's helping their performance as coaches. So I think you're right, Joe, in terms of there's a lot of things that we as coaches we can get crammed down with exercises and information and style of plays and everything else, but having that clarity, really simple especially for young kids, I think is really important.
You know, Scott, I think there's a good point that I got an opportunity to talk to Ryan from Aston Villa. He's now the academy manager at Aston Villa, and he was exactly the same thing. They put a lot of time and resources into how much time is spent. Even out here, we got a lot of water breaks. You know, at Villa, they're really trying to get that reflection mode. So the players are reflecting on the session as they go back for the water breaks. I know in Texas, sure, there in Florida with the amount of humidity, you get extended water breaks or a lot of water breaks. But it's in the professional game as well. You know, they're monitoring on, not even monitoring, but just reflection on the coaches' sessions on how much they're talking, how much they're stopping the sessions, what type of content they're saying when they are stopping the sessions. It's a good thing for the coaches to reflect upon. And then another second point I'd like to put to our coaches, you know, he's right, the World Cup was around the corner. How much, we talk to our players and we say how much they're not watching games. How much are our coaches watching? How much are we watching? Are we looking at it objectively? Are we looking at games? And can we learn from those games and really try and break down games ourselves? So, coaches, I don't want to keep talking. I know Scott's got some stuff. There's some other questions. I think, Scott, there's a chat popped up. I don't know if it's from somebody there. There might be a chat question. But if there's anybody at coaches, feel free to jump in.
Yeah. No, as I say, Anthony, like the World Cup thing, what we did was we kind of that was part of my job really. I was in touch with guys from FIFA and just trying to get as much of the footage as possible and get and see like those. If I take that one back to the tactical cam, just getting to watch games in a way that you can understand the game a little bit from a player's perspective. You know, sometimes watching games on the TV as well, it's only the camera's only on the ball, but trying to get those opportunities, I think, is really important for coaches. And again, if you ever want any of that stuff, I've got a lot of this stuff on file. I'm more than happy to share it with you guys if you want to use, because I've said it to the coaches here. Watch these games, clip it up, take clips that's relevant for your team. You know, if it is building from the back, if it is playing through the thirds, if it is going round them, whatever it is, take clips and put them in front of your players and your coaches, because as you say, a lot of people don't watch it. Some people, I know even today, a lot of the guys are watching the NFL rather than watching soccer, you know, but that's the culture that you're in. Yeah, I think watching games is massively important here for the development of the game. I really do. All right, anything else, guys? Anything else? Anthony, anything at all?
No? Oops, sorry. I'm trying to see what was written in the chat, but I'm driving. Can you see what was written in the chat?
Just a thanks. There's one here from Andrew. What are some of the things you do to motivate your players to do more outside the practice? Yeah, it's a good question. We had that debate this time last year, actually, here in Florida, about how can we maximise the time out. We do little things with competitions. So one of the things that we did at Partick Thistle, Joe will remember this, is we had an online learning platform, and we're doing the same here. But we give the kids a lot of skills to practice at home and then make it competitive. So one of the things that we're thinking about doing just now is the kids arrive 15 minutes before practices here. I don't know how it works for you guys, but they're told to report 15 minutes before the start of the practice time. And all the balls are lying out. And what we started to do is implement little games for them, like little 1v1s, 2v2s, and different things that they can do before practice. But we're telling them to, like, even things like for the youngest kids doing juggling, right? That was one of the most simple ones for the little kids. But they were told 1 week to go home and practice on their juggling skills, and then come in and see who would get the highest score before practice, and they would get a prize and things like that. So it was trying to motivate them, because it's, and I know here in the States, it's so competitive, and kids and families love that winning and that competitive aspect. So if you're trying to get your kids to compete with each other with little skills contests, and then telling them to come back in and showcase it at the start of practice, that's encouraging them to get out in the backyard and work on whatever skill it is that week. One of the things we're looking to do just now, Andrew, is we're looking at that idea of having a weekly contest on a skill. So you're breaking it down into those receiving skills and the release skills, where it's like the one that we're doing just now is the playing the pass to your teammate, taking a touch through one of the gates, and then playing it back. And if you get it through the gate, you get a point. If you don't get it through the gate, you don't get a point. And it's a competition between you and your teammate, and the guy that gets the most points in the team before the session is the winner. And it gets them all excited, all jumping, and then they come into the warm-up with good energy, and they've had a wee bit of competition, but at home they've been practicing on their receiving skills and their release skills as well. So again, I think it's about being creative as a coach, and being creative as a club, how you can maximise the time away from the fields as well.
Hey, Coach, good evening. Yeah, good evening. This is Mauricio. I'm Coach Joe's assistant. One of the things that Joe's has brought to the club is a lot of, openness, a lot of willingness to challenge and learn new things. We had a very successful summer where we had one night that it was free football. It was from 5 to 6:45. Everybody would come out. We took advantage of the fact that, these kids are probably home during the summer and driving the parents nuts. Yeah. So an hour and 45 at just free play, we would just be out there to make sure that, nobody got hurt, and they were playing organized and like we wanted them. So that's something that helped us get them out on another night. It gave our keepers another opportunity to get more shots. Joe, I helped Joe with some summer camps as well. The keepers, we have to get creative with them. We don't have a lot of resources. Luckily, with our club, we have a keeper coach who does 2 sessions per week for an hour each with keepers from beginners all the way to select that play high school. So it's just a couple of ideas. I've learned a lot from Coach Joe. Coach Anthony has given me the opportunity to, join the club as an assistant. So we just constantly looking for ideas and opportunities to get these kids on the pitch. So just a couple of things that I can share that we've done that's been successful with the group here. And that's thanks great. Again for the presentation.
No worries, that's great. No, another thing that we tried over the winter, I don't know if you guys have done this, but again, the kids go and play high school and stuff through the winter here, but we introduced 3v3 tournaments, and it was just a case of, it wasn't play for your team, it was you can get your mates together and you can register a team in this 3v3 tournament. So like an example, our 2009 boys team, I can remember them being out on the field. They actually saw it as an opportunity to compete with each other. So there was like little kids from within the team were in their own 3v3 teams. It was like, say it was me, Joe and Anthony, we would go as a team against whoever else. And it was great because all we did was set up the fields. We put the music on, got the ghetto blaster out, get the music on and let the kids play. But it was free play. One of the dads for each was just a volunteer, would help out each of the teams just from the side. And, you know, it was like little games, they would keep the scores, but it was all fun. It was club players, but it wasn't playing for your club team, but it was still just encouraging them to play and enjoy the game. And then one of the spin-offs of that, when you're talking about goalkeepers, was we felt that in the 3v3 tournament before Christmas, because it ran for like 4 weeks, the goalkeepers weren't involved. So what we've just done in January is we've introduced 5v5 tournaments with the goalkeepers. So all the goalkeepers are involved now as well, and they've all been loving it. So you're right, again, just having these free play scenarios, games nights, opportunities for touches in the ball with minimum coach-led activity is important. And again, Joe, certainly when we grew up, you know, that's what we did as kids. You know, we played on the streets, the street football, and it's how we developed our skills. And the more you can replicate that for the kids and get the kids doing more stuff that's fun, enjoyable, it's not overly structured, it's, you know, just for the love of the game, then it's a winner. It's an absolute winner. So it sounds like you're doing good stuff, which is great to hear. Somebody's asked about sharing the presentation. No problem. I'll try and get that over to Anthony. Not a problem. I'm more than happy to share that. There's not a lot in it tonight, but as I say, we're always open to ideas and always open to knowledge share over here. So hopefully we can continue to do that. I'm happy to come back on maybe next few months once we get into it and show you some of the clips of our practices that we're doing and things that have been successful, things that we're trying that's maybe not successful as well, so we can keep knowledge sharing. I think that's important as well. So more than happy to do that anytime, guys. So just give me a shout, Anthony, whenever. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna ask that same. I think the quality and content you give is fantastic. So that knowledge sharing is certainly valuable to our crew as well. So we'll hook up again maybe a couple of months time, like you said. Is there anybody else with a final question before you know, he's in Florida, so he's an hour ahead of us, guys. So is there anybody else with any more questions while he's on?
Hey, mine's not a question, but something I've tried. This is Coach Johnny. I work with the 2013 girls with Anthony recently. Something I've tried, and it's kind of like a homework I've given our girls, is I've numbered a skill from 1 to 10. And, you know, I'll tell the parents, hey, time them for 30 seconds. Like 1 will toe taps, 2 TikToks, 3 is a step over, you know. And something I've tried personally with my daughter is she's a center back. If she's in the situation where her face is towards the goal, I'll call out a 3. It's a step over, and she sends the player in the wrong direction, and it works out. I mean, that's something I've tried. I don't know if the older kids or if it will work as successful, but I know with the younger ones, trying to teach them some of those skills, I know it does help out, and it's kind of fun for them. You know, I'll give them 30 seconds to do it. Give me 3s, give me 5s, whatever you decide to give a skill out. And that's just something I feel has helped out.
That's brilliant. And it's good stuff, Johnny, because the key words that you said there that I think that are important for kids in particular, as you said, it's fun for them. There's a challenge there where you put the time constraint on it that makes it a challenge for them. And if there's a score involved as well and something to beat and something to aim for, getting back to the question earlier on about how do you motivate kids, these are 3 of the things that are really important for anyone, you know, that's playing sport. That, you know, if there is a time limit, there is a score to beat something, there is a reaction in it, it's a bit of fun as well. That's going to motivate people. And you're right as well, Johnny, what you do with your girls might not work with the older players at the club, but the coaches at the older ages of the club, again, could maybe take some of that and develop it, adapt it to suit. But I think, you know, the more creative we are as coaches and the more ideas we have as coaches and sharing knowledge as well, it's going to be better for everyone involved. So that's good stuff, man. It's good. All good. All right, Anthony.
Hey, man, I really appreciate your time. I know it's valuable. Scott, it's good to hear from you. So thank you very much on behalf of all the coaches here. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, mate.
No worries. Good luck for the season, guys. Hopefully speak to you all again soon.
Just got it. Thanks, that.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
See you later, Joe. See you after. See you later.
Yes. Bye.